you're always with people who are like, let's just sit down and watch a movie, let's just do this, that's going to make your brain dumber instead of stronger and smarter, then that's probably not the best thing for you to do. Surrounding yourself with people who push you, who love and support you, and who are willing to push themselves and are motivated, I think that's a really big one.
Welcome to Flow, Fascia, Lymph, Oxygen, Water, and Energy. And this is my first recording of 2024, and I'm very honored to have one of my dear colleagues and friends, Dr. Scott Noorda. He's a DO, and what we're going to delve into today is what my goal for 2024 is to really bring authenticity and how we live it. That is my word of the year, live it, in bringing that into the world. Because as you all know, I believe self-care over healthcare. And this medical doctor, this DO extraordinaire, is talking about brain optimization. He knows all the things, but I want to introduce you all to my dear friend, Dr. Scott Noorda, who's going to enlighten you to what an authentic medical professional, the new evolved human being, is really about in the family unit and what real medicine is about. So welcome, Dr. Scott.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Dr. Scott, you are a trained DO. Can you tell the audience a little bit like how you got your start, why you wanted to be a doctor, and then how it shifted at some point for you?
Yeah.
Gently and quickly, because I also get to know your family a little bit and how you present. And, you know, just to back up a little bit, I met him through a coaching program, and the first day, you know, I'm all about energy. I was so attracted to him and his wife because of who they are. And they were the first two people I connected with. And they're the reason that I truly joined that coaching group, and they know it. So thank you, Dr. Scott. I'll shut up and answer the question.
Oh, I love it. So I grew up not knowing the difference between a DO and an MD, and really didn't even have confidence in myself that I could become a doctor. So it wasn't even in my wheelhouse of opportunities. And then I met my amazing wife. We dated actually in high school, and she really pushed me to see maybe some potential that I couldn't see in myself. I spent 2 years on a mission for our church and learned Spanish and learned leadership skills. And then after that, it was really kind of her and others believing in me that showed me I could do something more. And so I set off to go to medical school. Again, not knowing the difference between a DO and an MD, I started to kind of look into both and realized that my childhood doctor, who did everything for us, he took care of every sickness, every ache and pain. He would do osteopathic manipulation on us. And so I just thought that's what every doctor did, until I got a little more experience and realized the additional training was really a great benefit. And so seeing that, I actually went on a couple of quick mission trips, health mission trips down to Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And again, got to see the skill set of DOs and MDs, and just felt like this is where my heart was. This is where I wanted to be. So headed off to osteopathic medical school in Chicago, the CCOM out there, and loved it. I really appreciated the hands-on training and the opportunity to do something for people when I was in med school besides just follow others around. I couldn't prescribe anything, but I could put my hands on people and start to see some improvements. Even in the hospital or in other settings. And so that resonated with me. And initially I thought I wanted to be a neurologist. That was my whole reason for going to medical school. I loved the brain. I was thinking neurosurgeon or neurologist, and then found that wasn't my calling. It didn't fit well with my personality. I love to connect with people and to follow them for a long time. And so primary care and family medicine, it's what drew me in. Went to residency in Texas, and again, loved most of it. But we started to get closer to finishing, as residencies do, they ratchet up the number of patients you need to see and kind of show you this is how many you need to see to make money in the real world. And I realized I couldn't make any meaningful difference in their lives with 5 to 10 minutes per patient. And so it kind of was a gut shot for me. and I had to step back and see what else is out there. Found first the company called Doctors Making House Calls out in North Carolina that allowed me to get out of the clinic space and be in people's own living conditions. So I was in their homes and assisted living centers.
Cool. Like an old school. Love that.
Yeah. My whole office was my Honda Pilot that I just put everything into and went out to people's homes. And it was great. I absolutely loved it. I loved being with people in their homes. But I started to grow frustrated more and more with the medical system. I was constantly just documenting my life away, trying to justify getting paid by Medicare and Medicaid. And I was just seeing the effects of our healthcare system as I was seeing people at the end stages of chronic disease. So dementia and Alzheimer's, diabetes, all the things. I was seeing them on handfuls and pages of medications where we were prolonging life, but certainly not improving their quality of life and doing anything meaningful for them. And it was at that same time that my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease here in Utah. And again, it was a big turning point in my life because I realized I had studied neuroscience at BYU. I thought I was going to be a neurologist. I now was living and working with people with Alzheimer's and memory care facilities and such. And I should have had some amazing tools to give to him, and I had nothing. And so I had to step back and look at what else is out there. There has to be something I can do for my dad and for people dealing with this condition. And through the process, found the Institute for Functional Medicine, found Dr. Del Bredeson's work, and started to realize, there's a whole world out there of knowledge, of looking at root causes, of trying to understand nutrition and lifestyle that I was missing in my training. I don't regret going to medical school. It gave me a lot of meaningful tools, but I missed out on a lot as well. And so adding those in slowly over the past several years has given me more opportunities to have more to offer to people. And I also just found that I wasn't able to, as I was prescribing medications, I should say, I felt like I wasn't in authenticity with what I would really want for myself. And so I'm out there giving people blood pressure medications and diabetes medications and all these things, and realizing that's not what I would want. If I was in that situation, I'm going to want to know what I need to eat, what I need to do, what I need to change so that I don't have to live like this. And again, so finding those tools really allowed me to change the way that I practice, to use medications when I really, really need to, but otherwise really finding ways to empower people to change themselves and their family. And so that's the story in a nutshell. Moved back to Utah, and we have a practice called Resolve Medical, where we have a brain training program, a brain lift program to help prevent cognitive decline, and just treating people in the best way we can with functional medicine and authentic, true health. That's what we do.
It's beautiful. And I would also say that your lifestyle has contributed to your awareness about all of that. Can you talk a little bit about, it's funny because Silas, my 10-year-old son, during the holidays called me a Utah mom. And I didn't think about it till just talking to him. And I go, Silas, what's a Utah mom? And he goes, you wear all your jewelry and you like to go outside and you like to do yoga and you like to eat good food. And I'm like, all right, I give in. I'm a Utah mom. I don't know. You've never been to Utah. I don't know how you understand that, but okay, I'll take it. But I just when he said it, I didn't really associate with you and Amy, but I was like, yeah, I think I am a Utah mom actually. But you just impressed me that first day I met you. I was like, oh, where were you guys this morning? And you were like, oh, we were weren't you like camping outside with your whole family for like a week before I met you?
Yeah, I think that was.
And like hiking up crazy mountains. Like, talk about that a little bit, would you?
Yeah, I mean, that was another major part of what I started to realize in my career was if I was going to have a successful career, I needed to live what I was teaching. I needed to know what I was teaching. And I started with focusing on what was most important for me. So God and my family and taking care of myself. And so I have, with Amy's help, so I'm married to Amy, as you mentioned. We have 5 kids. We have a daughter who's 19, and then 4 boys from 15 down to 7. And that has been the center of my world for a long time. I was married before I started medical school, and I will be married when I'm done practicing medicine. And so that's really more important to me. But so that's what we do. Yeah, we've designed our life to be able to practice. That's the reason we met you in that coaching program, is to be able to have virtual offerings for people, reach more people, and have the quality of life that we need. So we love, we're super passionate about cooking. Love to cook good food, cook it together, cook with other people. We love outdoors. That's why we live in St. George, Utah, and it's desert, but it allows me to do mountain biking and allows us to rock climb and rappel and hike and just do all the things that we want to do in this sunny, beautiful place. Yeah, so that's kind of the passion of our lives. We have a Sprinter van, and we pile everybody in and travel all over the place, going to fun places.
When I started studying bioregulatory medicine in Switzerland in 2006 with Ian, we were traveling around. Our colleague that was from the States was taking us to all his friends in Zurich and all over the place. And we kept meeting all these people that were taking sabbaticals. They were teachers, they were shop owners or workers, and they were taking 2 to 3 months off at a time. And Ian and I had been working in the practice at that point only for about 4 or 5 years, but we had been working our whole lives. And we could barely afford the time to take 3 weeks off for his 50th birthday and to have our internship in Switzerland. And I turned to my friend in Switzerland and I was like, Byron, I don't get it. What am I missing? How can they take off 2 to 3 months? And he was like, well, Americans live so they can work, and Europeans work so they can live. And when I met you and Amy on that mountaintop in Utah, and you had explained, I literally knew I had met, as I said in the beginning, the new, evolved, authentic family doctor that lives authentically, lives it, and lives his life and works so he can live his life. They work so they can live their life. And then they teach that. And that's what we teach at True Wellness as well. Is like, we don't want you dependent upon us. We don't want you dependent upon a medical system. And I applaud you for doing what so many don't do. Is, would I do that for me? Would I do that to my sister? Would I do that to my mother? And I think if we put ourselves in that position, I remember sitting in medical ethics class at Cornell, undergraduate, and my father was in a hospital bed dying, suctioning out his mouth, had a catheter in, had been laying there for 3 or 4 months. It was only 55 years old. And I was taking medical ethics, and these doctors or pre-doctors are sitting around a table, 19, 20 years old, and talking about, how we do in medical ethics, like, what if you have this scenario? What would you do? What would you recommend? And they're all just like, unplug them. And I'm just like, no. You would not make that decision necessarily if it was your father laying in a hospital bed right now. And there's so much of that loss, that art of, well, I did not know that you're driving to people's homes. It's so beautiful. I mean, that has been my dream, to go back to where people are recommended because the doctor gets results. I didn't know the name of your clinic either, which is Results, which is beautiful. And it's all about results, the relationship, and the authenticity of truly caring. Because I would contend that care that you and Amy have for your clients is what heals them more so than the advice you give them. Because like Amy saw something special in you, you see in that in your clients, and are allowing them the love for themselves, to care for themselves, to take that motivational step to go do that hike or do that thing that's going to put them in the direction of the proper, appropriate lifestyle, rather than being dependent upon some drug or some other thing outside of them that we know doesn't make them well. It's all from within.
Yeah.
That story exemplifies who you are. And I would love for you to explain briefly the difference a little bit for the audience they don't know between a DO and an MD, because I knew if I ever ended up at medical school over the last 20 years, since I've toyed with it because there's a great DO school right here in Philadelphia, that would be the one I go to, because that of all the doctors outside of anesthesiologists, I'd say they're probably top of the heap just from what they do. Like, put a body to sleep and bring it back. It's pretty impressive. But a DO like you, they can do everything. And I want you to explain that a little bit, because I've seen a DO on and off throughout my life. If I have to see a medical doctor, I typically for my own sake, I would look for a DO. I haven't done that in 20 years, but can you explain why?
Yeah. So the basic trainings, the science, the pharmacology, all of that training is the same from a scientific standpoint. We still go through the same anatomy classes. We still go through all the same physiology classes. But DOs, what impressed me the most was, I would say, two things. One was their holistic approach. And I didn't really understand what that meant. In Chicago, they called it mind, body, spirit, was kind of the way that they focused. And so there was that discussion where you mentioned ethics. We had a discussion like that related to, okay, what does this have to do physically with the body? What does it have to do with the spirit? And how do we connect with people in a spiritual way, whatever that means to them, right? If that's God, if that's some force in the universe to help them connect spiritually and understanding their spiritual health and then their mind health. And so, I've certainly expanded since then, but that was important to me, to look at things a bit more holistically and whole person. And then, like I mentioned, the training includes hands-on manipulation, and it's kind of similar, a lot of the techniques, to some of the stuff that chiropractors do, but it allows us to work on soft tissues in multiple different ways. It allows us to do anything from real soft, indirect techniques to more direct popping, cracking stuff. The whole idea being, again, if the body has an innate ability to heal itself, we just need to give it what it needs and put it in the right position and facilitate that healing, whether that's spiritually, mentally, or physically. And so it gave me that tool where I would, again, as a medical student, I've only been in training for 2 years, and I'm in a doctor's office, and somebody comes in with neck pain, it's an MD. They say, here's your ibuprofen, or here's your muscle relaxer prescription. And I would be like, can I just put my hands on them and see if I can help? And then people would start seeking me out as a medical student, because I can actually give them something and treat them and fix things rather than just prescribing things. So that would be the basics of it.
I want to speak to that for a second, because from a DO perspective, chiropractors learn the spine and the spinal column, whereas DOs learn the whole skeletal system and how to adjust some chiropractors learn all the bones, right? But DOs focus on the skeletal system, not just the spine.
Right. Yep.
And DOs also learn about this thing that Kelly talks a lot about called fascia.
So much.
Fascia and lymph. Because when you want to touch your hands, when you put your hands on somebody, is that not what you're feeling, Dr. Scott? Is part of
Absolutely.
where the tensions are in their body.
Yes. Yeah. It was shocking to me to see when we did anatomy, just how that fascia was what connected everything within the body. And so I didn't realize that until I actually saw that and then physically put my hands on people, and then doing it more and more and more, where you start to realize, okay, I can pop this bone back in, but this fascia is just going to pull it right back out, right? And so I have to try to help kind of support the muscles and the fascia and the soft tissues in a way that it allows it to hold the structure. And it can affect not just bones and joints, but gut function and so many other things. So,
yeah. Absolutely. And from that other side, from running True Wellness for the last 18 years, physical medicine is something we've talked a lot about in our meetings as a team, because physical medicine's changed a lot for me from the perspective of what I've done here. We went from doing a lot of emotional release techniques to, okay, we're helping people, but there's still this whole physical component we're not helping. So then we heard all the medical doctors, we were doing all the injections and the IVs and treating the train and, dealing with all that. And then I was like, I didn't have a Dr. Scott in Pennsylvania. God bless some of the doctors here, but I was like, okay, enough. Everybody go away. I got this. And we're going to get rid of the needles and the syringes and go back into, and I started working more on the fascia and the lymph and dealing with the physical traumas being held and trapped in the tissue, so that as he's releasing it, as they're changing their lifestyles, they're doing their intermittent fasting and getting their metabolic, flexibility improvements, and they're doing all the things that we know to improve their physiology. We also get it stuck out of the tissues. And I had a young girl from Switzerland I haven't seen in 4 years. She was a daughter of a client the other day, and she goes, I just thought it'd be different. I went to Switzerland. I went to all these medical doctors and nobody touched me. Nobody did anything. They couldn't do anything for me but prescribed. And I thought it was different in Switzerland. And she said, and I don't know how you can help me, but I've had this cough for 2 months and I don't think I'm ever going to get the cough away. And so I said, okay, well, I haven't seen you in 4 years, so we're going to just dive in. I just started doing all my work and we got done. And she's dealt with headaches and anxiety and different things in her past. And I know that shifted her. And what she needed was physical cupping and, fascia work and get those ribs to really open the oxygen, to get the mucosal lining, to get all that oxygen. And that is, I think, what's missing so much. And I know we both love virtual practices and there's a lot to do to help people. But at some point, the issues are in the tissues, and you need somebody that can touch you with expertise and facilitate that and then teach you how to do that more at home and more with movement. I mean, you and Amy are two of the most active people I know and always have grounding shoes on. And, you're just so connected to each other. And I'm speaking, I hope I'm not outing you two, but like, they're so cute and in love and best friends, and they're just adorable. And it's genuine. And I didn't know I guess I did know you've known each other since high school, which makes it even more adorable. And, and they have 5 freaking kids. That's a lot of kids. I mean, that's a tribe you have. You don't have a kid. You have a tribe. You have your own tribe. And they're very successful. And I know the results you get for clients. And it's impressive. And it's impressive because it looks so easy and simple. And I want you to speak to, if you will, how you see that reflecting in brain health and optimization for all, because what I see in the world right now is we're up against the biggest pandemic we're ever going to hit, which is the healthcare crisis. We went from 20% to 60% anxiety. We have all the baby boomers now aging into their 70s and 80s. They're toxic. They did not learn what we learned. And now they're all delving with brain dysfunction, autonomic nervous dysfunction, neurological dysfunction. They can call it MS, ALS, Parkinson's, dementia, and Alzheimer's. But you and I both know it's a dysregulation of the autonomic nervous system from a toxicity and a dispatterning probably of emotional, mental, spiritual stuff.
I'm going to get into that in a roundabout way because I wanted to go back to something that you had mentioned before around kind of the way that healing truly comes about for people. What shocked me, I would say, when I got into this type of medicine, this type of health, was I sat down with people and I would not do anything for them. I would just listen. And I would spend 60 to 90 minutes in that initial visit just listening and asking questions and soaking things in and trying to understand them and their story. And then people would walk out making comments like, "You're the most amazing doctor I've ever met. I feel so much better than I have in years." And I was scratching my head. I'd come home and be like, "Amy, I don't know what they're thinking, but I'm not doing anything." And it took me a while, and probably her insights, to really understand that what people were missing in their interactions with healthcare providers was that ability for people to really understand them and their story, and knowing that somebody cares about them, that somebody understands them without judging them, without right away telling them exactly what they needed to do. for them, that was just so healing and so powerful. And so that's guided everything that we've done as far as trying to understand. That's one of the problems with healthcare or sick care, really, is it's all evidence-based, but the evidence never seems to be on the exact same person that you're treating, right? So I'm practicing evidence-based medicine to bring somebody's blood pressure down or their diabetes under control, but the people in the study don't actually reflect the individual sitting in front of me and their unique situation and their family situation, and maybe some of the sort of the non-healthy relationships that they've developed with food or whatever the situation is. And so really understanding that, to me, has been such a powerful tool, just to take time to understand what is it that makes you different within this diagnosis, right? So that was a huge turning point for me when it came to brain health. I was working in memory care. I knew all the medications. I knew all the recommendations and guidelines, which were all useless, by the way, related to cognitive decline and Alzheimer's disease. And we had, some medication for Parkinson's disease, but otherwise it was just such a sad offering that we could give them as a healthcare industry. But being able to connect with somebody and realize, knowing the research on brain health and cognitive decline, like you said, it's going to be related to toxins or an impaired ability for their mitochondria to function optimally because of toxins, because of glycotoxicity or high blood sugar and insulin issues, because of lack of nutrients and growth factors and hormones. And so to have all of that information and then go into an individual interaction and say, okay, Kelly, tell me about what your situation is, what your story is, right? And I think what made the biggest difference for me was learning that and then going back to my dad's story and piecing it together and realizing, okay, this was somebody who was so compassionate and loving and selfless that he wasn't able to do self-care. So he was always doing things for other people, but he worked shift work at the National Guard and also at Hill Air Force Base here in Utah. And so he was there from 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon until about 1 o'clock in the morning. He would get home. At that point, he'd eat some food because he didn't want to spend much money there at the office. And then he would go to bed, and a few hours later, he's waking up to help me and my brother get off to school. So he could let my mom sleep in. And so his sleep patterns weren't good. He wasn't getting enough sleep. His eating patterns were terrible. He worked like crazy. So we had a cherry orchard, and he was out there spraying because he didn't know the difference, right? He didn't know all the pesticides caused a lot of these issues. And so he's out there spraying. And unfortunately, I was out there sometimes spraying with him too, because he cared enough to include me in that and put me on the tractor and drive me along. But being able to piece together his story and seeing the toxins and the sleep issues and the stress that he went through, and then when he retired and he also lost his hearing and didn't use hearing aids for a while, which contributed. And then to see him start to socially isolate more and more because he couldn't hear well and because he started to realize that he couldn't think quite as clearly. He had run marathons for years, and then he started to just slow down more and more. And so, yeah, for me, being able to see that visually has just imprinted on my mind all of these things that have allowed me to connect with people and see them and their story and say, okay, you probably haven't realized this, but what we see so often is as soon as you retire, you start to socially withdraw. You don't push yourself to do things. Your brain doesn't get stretched anymore. So after going through his story and all the research, Amy and I sat down together, and first we actually researched and wrote a book called Power Couple Habits, because we started to realize how important it was, number one, to develop habits. That's what allowed people to make sustainable lifestyle changes, because we could give people all the information that we wanted, but until they made it a habit, it didn't make any lasting changes. And then the other one was being able to do it with somebody. We saw that being much more sustainable than one person in the family trying to do something on their own. and their spouse and children or significant other wasn't really supportive. And so it caused tension and more issues than it resolved. So after writing the book, then we put together this brain lift program over the following couple of years that takes all of the research and puts it into bite-sized daily habits for people to change over time, ideally with somebody else so that they can make that sustainable change in nutrition, lifestyle, and detoxification, and managing stress and sleep and all those things. So that's what we do.
It's beautiful. And that, I think, is so what people are wanting right now is the how-tos. You know, how do I live my life so that I can actually prevent it? I think there's been so much awareness brought through social media, through so many things in the last few years, which I'm so grateful for people to get the truth and the real information about how the body really works, and to really arm themselves with the proper research so that they can then make informed decisions instead of waiting for somebody outside of them that doesn't understand their life or their lifestyle or who they are, what they're willing to do, how disciplined they're willing to be, all the things to help them be able to get their goals for what they want. I think so many of us, like, at 20, I was like, I don't want to live in a life of pain. Can somebody show me how? And every doctor was like, let me take another picture. Let me give you another pill. Let me take another picture, give you another pill. And a support group. I got a lot of support group information. A bunch of other people that are also in chronic pain, because that'll make you feel better. And I just wanted somebody that had like, but what can I do? It's a physical problem. Like, I have a compressed vertebrae and a scar. Like, you can't tell me I don't have a long-term chronic illness. I have physical pain from a car accident, you know? And if I said DO, maybe they would have had a different approach, but I was going to neurologist and pain specialist and orthopedic specialist. I didn't know DOs then. And so it was not until I met Ian, who taught me about the emotional component. I experienced vibrational healing and got a spontaneous healing and was like, what the heck did you do? And it was like, energy, you know, that whole story. And I was like, what the heck's energy? And now we are all these years later. And I'm like, the energy of life, the happy joy factor of life. We know this from looking at the Octarians. Their joy factor has so much to do with something Dr. Scott spoke about in the beginning, is quality of life. Yes, Western medicine may be able to extend our life. Definitely extended my father's life. All the chemo and radiation he got in the 60s and 70s, I'm grateful for at the 80s and the 90s until he died in 93. I'm grateful. It kept him alive, but I won't say he had a quality of life. He couldn't digest his food well. He couldn't be in the sun. He had all sorts of issues and dependencies upon rigidities in his health because he wasn't expansive. He wasn't flexible. He was very inflexible and died at 55. It succumbed to Western medicine. And now if I get diagnosed with something, I don't want to, so many people, thank God, are like, I don't want to just take a pill for the rest of my life. What can I do to change this? Because they know that the body can't be just dependent upon pharmaceuticals our whole life. That is not, whatever you believe in, not what we were created to do. I didn't get created to live this life so I could take pharmaceutical drugs. That's definitely, I don't have a deficiency in pharmaceutical drugs. I might have a deficiency in understanding how my body works. And if so, and I want to optimize, and I think so many people want to know how to optimize their brains. And I'm so grateful to you and Amy for putting together what you have so that they have a virtual way. And if they want to meet you and go to Utah and work with you, I'm happy for them to do that as well. But they can work with you virtually to optimize their brain. And correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of that is about lifestyle choices and relationships and connections to spirituality and to the earth. Or is it more about taking your CoQ10, your vitamin C, and your greens? I'm so curious. I've not read the book. So full disclosure, I've not read the book.
No, I mean, it's, although it is difficult to develop a habit of taking pills, I still struggle with that one. But no, that's not the habits we're talking about. Although, there are definitely times we certainly give supplements, high quality supplements to supplement what we're trying to do from a lifestyle standpoint, right? But ultimately, I tell people every time, I'm like, my goal is not for you to live on pills. I want this to be a temporary tool while you're working through everything else, so that nutritionally you realize, okay, if I eat enough of this one thing, right, I can have enough zinc, I can have enough magnesium that supports my body's ability to do the processes that it needs to. So yeah, it's mostly lifestyle for sure.
So I want this to be your template for 2024 for everybody listening, that you are going to find a team of individuals that are in alignment, like Dr. Scott, for the new evolved healthcare practitioner and professional, medical professional that sees you as the whole person of who you are and can facilitate, supplement you. I love how you just said it, because I say the same thing. They're dependents if you've been on them for 5 years or more. They're not supplements. And you shouldn't be on any one thing forever, except for some minerals right now because we've depleted our soils. But outside of that, we both believe, and this is my little tagline, self-care over healthcare. And our job as a professional is to help you not be dependent upon us and our systems and our programs, but to give you empowerment, as Dr. Scott said in the beginning, so that you know how to take care of your body, and you know when it's time to go get your chiropractic adjustment, your acupuncture. Maybe it's time for a cold plunge today. Maybe I need to do a fast now. Maybe I need to gorge myself with food because I'm really hungry and I haven't been eating enough. Maybe I need to take a nap. Maybe I need to go burn energy and go climb a mountain. All those things at some point are necessary, and it's about leaning into that authenticity of what I need, so that those habits that I'm creating are within alignment for what my body needs, not just because I'm unconsciously going through life and expecting that it's all going to work out because I don't have any responsibility for this and I'll just wait for somebody in a white coat to tell me what pill to take. And we know that's not true if you're listening to this podcast this deep into it. You know that's not you. But I want us all, to set a vision, to set a template for this to be the new medical professional that we all have access to. And you all now have access to Dr. Scott and Amy and his team. And do you have any piece of advice or anything you want to give to the community in regards to, like, what are the top 3 things that you do? What did you call it? The couple hack? What's the name of the book?
The Power Couple Habits.
Power couple habits. What are the top 3 power couple habits that you would recommend for brain optimization?
Let me say, just because I really loved what you said around surrounding yourself with a good team. The research I was looking at recently around, like, research in joy and having joy in life. And it was so interesting to me that the number one thing that continues to come around is surrounding yourself with people who are happy, with joy. If you want to be happy in your life, surround yourself with happy people. And I think it's so true in the realm of health in general. If you want to live a healthy lifestyle, if you want to live empowered, if you want to live elevated, you surround yourself with those people, right? Who can support you, who motivate you, and who push you, right? So if you're always with people who are like, let's just sit down and watch a movie, let's just do this, that's going to make your brain dumber instead of stronger and smarter, then that's probably not the best thing for you to do. And so surrounding yourself with people who push you, who love and support you, and who are willing to push themselves and are motivated, I think that's a really big one. The other things are, your tagline is live it this year. And my tagline has been, we can do hard things to get into your growth zone rather than your comfort zone.
Ooh,
that's been really good for me. The research continues to pour in, and it doesn't mean that you can't still be happy in life, right? You have to be miserable in order to grow. It doesn't necessarily mean that. It just means you find ways that are a little bit uncomfortable. And that might mean you already exercise, but you're going to push yourself a little bit harder or in a little bit different ways. It might mean, like you mentioned, cold plunges. It might mean that you're sweating in a sauna. It might mean that you change the timing of your meals. So you do a little bit more intermittent fasting. And even though you tend to get the munchies at night, you decide, I'm not going to eat 3 hours before bedtime so that I can allow my autophagy to happen in my body and clear it out and clear out dead and dying cells. So timing of meals, I think, is really important. And I would say that's a big one. Just being able, when we talk about hard things, you have control over what you eat. You make decisions around the type of food and when you eat and how much you eat. And so just taking control over that, not in a way where it's difficult and painful, but just in a way where you feel empowered to say, if I want to eat a treat, these are the healthy things. You know, Amy and I eat treats still, but it's probably not the same treats that we did when we were little, or that a lot of other people eat. We eat treats that can still give our bodies energy and bring kind of joy and happiness and fun into our lives that we can share with others. But being able to take control over that and not feeling like a victim where, well, I'm just hungry all the time, so I just need to eat this. And so I think getting out of your comfort zone and doing some intermittent fasting is really, really important, or some type of fasting. So surrounding yourself with really good, like-minded people. So relationships are really important. We talked about autophagy, stimulating that through fasting. And then I would say the other one would probably be just in the way that you move. So I've just found, as more and more research comes about, the movement that we do is so important. And this can look different for each person individually, but just finding a way to move that you can enjoy. So it brings you happiness and joy. So I mentioned mountain biking. For me, if I can be out on a trail, and I can find joy in doing this a lot of different ways. I help coach the kids' mountain biking team here. Our daughter was on it. Now our son's on it, our oldest son, and being able to connect with him and just go out on a bike ride, or even the 7-year-old, we went out on a bike ride the other day. And so we can have time outside, we can have time together and be exercising is just such a treasure. Or I also love being out in the nature by myself, just having that quiet time when I can push myself, but I can also just kind of connect with nature and reset my mind. And so finding ways that you can do that, whether it's yoga, I think finding ways to push your body to get stronger is really important as far as boosting mitochondria and longevity and brain health. So yeah, 3 is hard.
No, it is. I think, I'm outing myself. So I'm turning 50 in a couple of weeks. And one of the things I've said when I was 48 or 9, I started to let people know that I really wanted to learn how to do a handstand. I've never been able to do a handstand my whole life, or a proper cartwheel. I was never gifted with that structure as a child. And as an adult, then of course the car accident and all that. And as I've healed, I just look at people doing a handstand. And for me, it's the quintessential, like, I've healed because I can do a handstand. And Sarah, who works with me, who's been with me for 7 years, 3 as a client and 4 as a teammate, she, like, when she was a client, I'd ask, where's Sarah? In the waiting room? Oh, she's on her hands doing a handstand. Like, I think Sarah spends more times on her hands than her feet for a good couple of years of her life. So for Christmas and my birthday, she gave me a video sequence that she made, a channel for me on YouTube of Kelly's journey to handstands. And it's all about movement, and it's about learning how to move and trust my body in a way I've never been able to trust my body in my 50s in a new way. So now the goal is, in my 50s, I'm not giving myself such a time crunch. I'm giving myself plenty of time to not, because I had carpal tunnel in my past. I've got to rebuild my wrist up. I've broken an arm. It's all a lot of rehabbing of fascia. And she and I have created a template of like what we're going to do and how often we're going to do it to change movements. Because what I know about fascia and all the deep diving I've done, and Gil Headley, I give you so much credit. I love you so much. When I asked him what his 3 pieces of advice were, like I did you, he said, move different frequently. I was like, oh, that's and it's what you're saying. Like, movement is so key. And I think the biggest thing that I've seen in the lifestyle from American to European is the movement. I mean, they're in Europe smoking cigarettes, climbing hills. It's the mountains. They're climbing mountains and they're smoking, but they're all looking healthier on their heart rate variabilities and their live bloods and their quantitative assessments because they're more active. And I think all of us could stand, me included, to be more active in our lives. So I love all your advice, but I think move for me is a big one, because I think if you don't move it, it's stuck. That's flow, right?
Oh, I love it. That's been probably the biggest thing for me when we moved to Utah. We came from North Carolina, which was green and beautiful, and I was like, I'm not sure I want to move to the brown desert out here. It's like red cliffs and red rocks. It's amazing, but I miss the green. But my biggest worry was that I wouldn't spend as much time outside and wouldn't move as much. And we've made sure as a family that's not the case, and we move all the time. And I would attribute our health and my success in business really to being able to live the lifestyle where people come to you because you live what you do, like you said, living it. And people often they'll be asking me questions like, how do you do this, right? And to be able to give that authentic answer, where so many of my colleagues, as I went through my training and even now, they're really amazing doctors in what they do, but they don't always live what they preach. And so to be able to sit down with somebody and I tell them, here's the things you're going to eat and the things you're going to do. And they say, but how do you do this? How do you take out sugar? What do you do different? How do you remove toxins from your house? And to give practical information, I feel like is so much more valuable and meaningful than to be able to give advice and education without practical knowledge.
And maybe we need to redefine doctor, because doctor are always meant to educate, right? And in Latin, they do educate. Yeah. And maybe we need to change it to educate and live it,
Right.
One of my business mentors always said, if you want what somebody has, then do what they do and you'll get what they got. But never take advice from somebody that doesn't have what you want, because you can't get it from them. And I remember sitting outside of my father's hospital with this doctor that was smoking a cigarette, that was overweight. I was smoking cigarettes at the time with my mother. And I just literally put the cigarette down, put it out. And that day, everything changed for me. I went to my guidance counselor, was like, I don't want to have medicine. It was like something hit me. I was like, wait a second. I'm on all these drugs, managing my pain, acne and asthma. My 55-year-old father is dying in the hospital. He never smoked. My mother and I are out here closet smoking, but finally coming out to each other, standing with this big, heavy doctor that's smoking. And I happen to know somebody I grew up with, her father was like the main doctor in our town, and he was a severe alcoholic. And I was like, okay, maybe something needs to change here. And I applaud you and Amy, your lifestyle, your willingness to let me throw an audible at you today, because you had all these like talking points. I was like, yeah, Genevieve, that's real cute, but I know Dr. Scott, and I want the world to know Dr. Scott. And I appreciate you lending your heart and letting them know your soul and who you are. And I pray that this inspired you today, that listening to this caused you to realize that there are amazing doctors out there for you, and that there are great healthcare practitioners that care for you, and that you've got to care for yourself more than anything and live your authentic life and find people that are living the way you want to live and help them help you. That's what we're here for. And I thank you so much. How can they find you, Dr. Scott? Can you give them your website, all your places to meet up with you and find your programs and all your things?
Yeah. Our website is resolveutah.com. And you can find us on Instagram. It's just dr.scottnoorda. Those are the two main places. And then certainly just follow along. We do reels and try to provide meaningful education there. And hopefully it resonates with people and they want to connect.
Well, thank you. And give my love to Amy, please. And thank you all for listening and sharing this if this does resonate with you. And until next time, know from our hearts to yours truly that you got this, live it, and we'll see you here for the next episode of Flow.